Notre première intervenante, on va l'accueillir, elle doit être avec nous à distance. Je vous demande d'accueillir Susan Neely, présidente et CEO de l'American Council of Life Insurance. Alors, est-ce que Susan Neely est avec nous? Susan.
Hey, bon après-midi.
How are you doing?
Very well. Merci. C'est un grand honneur pour moi être parmi vous. Merci à le président Mohamed Hassan Ben Saleh et mon collègue Bachir Badou. Maintenant, c'est tout en français. J'ai étudié à l'université il y a longtemps. Il y a de nombreuses années. C'est la fin. Je suis désolée, mais it is a pleasure to be here, and
Okay,
thank you.
It's a great pleasure to have you here with us today in Casablanca for this grand rendez-vous de l'assurance. I knew that you were speaking French very well, but we will go on in English if you please. Well, it's a great honor to have you here, and then we're going to try to have your perspective on the contribution of insurance sector to sustainable economic and social development. And just to say for the people right here, I know a lot of people know ACLI, who is the which represents, I mean, the company's members of ACLI represent 95% of industry assets in the United States. 95% des actifs eh ben, sont représentés par les compagnies qui sont dans l'ACLI, et you serve nearly 90 million families with products and services. So it's very important. Your speech today is very important to us. So thank you again. Well, just to begin, Susan, we all been through this very difficult period, and United States too, and United States insurance industry as well. So what is your perspective on how the US industry was affected by the pandemic, and where does the industry stand now?
Well, the pandemic has had a horrific impact on people, families around the world, in the States, in Morocco, and everywhere. And it's had an impact on not just health, but financial security. Like in all crises, there are consequences, there's devastation, but there's also opportunities for leadership. And I think the pandemic provided a very important opportunity for leadership for the life insurance sector to support people and make good on those promises, those long-term promises and guarantees that we give people. To give you a statistic, we had an increase of payouts in 2020 that were 15.4% greater than the year before in 2019. The last time we had such a significant increase in payouts was with the global influenza epidemic in 1918, just to give you a sense of the scale. So many industries hard hit, many sectors couldn't function, airlines, retail, restaurants, because of the pandemic. We not only functioned, but we delivered in a very, very important reality for families who needed the support and us to deliver on the promises that we made. So it was a great opportunity for leadership and to show the value proposition of the industry and life insurances to family financial security. Of course, as we'll talk further, there's much more to do now because people's financial security was hit hard, and the gaps and inequities that existed before the pandemic are even greater now.
Well, let's talk about sustainability. So, can you tell us how do you think about sustainability, and what's the unique leadership opportunity for life insurance industry?
Well, ESG has become a watchword, or a set of watchwords, hasn't it? Environmental, social, governance. I think certainly the industry's initial response is, as our supervisors around the globe, internationally and in the States, have started paying more attention to this. Of course, we're paying more attention to it and stepping up as a result. Typically, when you hear ESG, at least in the States, and I think perhaps elsewhere, you think environmental and climate, and FSB, G20, IAIS are all focusing on the risk of climate. In the US, our NAIC, in response to amplify international standard setting, are launching a climate risk survey. And of course, we're working closely with the NAIC on that. Our Securities Exchange Commission is also looking at the disclosure requirements as it relates to our investment. So there's a lot happening on the regulator and supervisory level, and certainly we're right there responding. But I also think we have a leadership opportunity to not just respond, but to see how we can do more to advance the goals on climate as well as social and governance.
Well, obviously there is a social dimension to sustainability, and thinking about this, how has the pandemic influenced social sustainability? What is the U.S. insurance sector perspective about this?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, there were wealth gaps, there were gaps in based on race, and financial security gaps that were affecting women before there was a pandemic. What happened with the pandemic is it's exacerbated those gaps, and I would say it's given us a need to double down and increase our efforts, which were already manifold in those areas prior to the pandemic, and it's given us a lot of reason and rationale and motivation to increase them. So I think financial inclusion is a very, very important objective that you'll hear in the States, you hear it globally. It's certainly something that I think we as the life insurance sector are well positioned to take on.
Talking about sustainability again, how is the concept of economical sustainability evolving? What are the new paths and the new hurdles, or I would say the new challenges?
Well, the new challenges, I think, are that the problems have gotten worse. The United Nations estimates that, just start with women, we've lost a generation of gains in gender equality. That's very sobering and very discouraging as someone who has spent really my whole career focused on aspects of achieving gender equality and advancing financial security for women, both in the US and around the globe. I was conscious of all the progress we were making. To have the UN say we've lost a generation of gains is very, very sobering. I guess, as in all crises now, there's a lot of attention being paid. I would say, first, the view from the States, where the needs are. Women were already destined to live longer than men, but also destined to outlive their savings. So we have women with severe financial challenges as they enter the retirement years. And this is compounded over a lifetime because pay equity gaps, because women taking time off to take care of family members and not earning, not being able to pay into our Social Security system, not being able to pay into a retirement savings account. So there's sort of this compounding impact on women, and then they get to 65 or older and are ready to retire and have inadequate savings. So retirement security is one important need, and we are doubling down on that. I'm happy to say with the US Congress, and I'm very optimistic that there will be policy passed that allows us to accelerate our efforts to address the needs of women, underrepresented communities, and all people who are wanting to improve their financial position as they go into retirement. Caregiving, and particularly as it relates to time off from the workplace, is an acute need in the US. I would say we're behind other countries that are more advanced in terms of addressing this need, and it's a big focus of our president and the White House. It's a big focus of leaders on both sides of the aisle in Congress, and it's certainly a big focus of ACLI and the life insurance industry. And I know from much experience that things only get attention when they are seen as important. So that's an issue that's seen as critical, vital, and I have some optimism that we'll be able to address it in a way that allows the private sector, the life insurance sector, to do even more to help people. So that's the view from the States. I think I would commend the G20, when it was overseen by the Italians in 2021. They had for the first time, a special initiative on women's empowerment. It was extremely well crafted, organized, and I think surfaced a lot of policies like the ones I'm talking about that can be helpful to addressing this massive gender equality issue around the globe. The Italian private sector led the B20, a companion effort, and I think that was a very, very well organized effort as well. Indonesia, who now holds the G20, is continuing that focus on women, and we fully expect that Brazil and India will as well. So again, important people are paying attention, and that's when things get done.
Well, listening to what you said, I can get that life insurance industry can be a force for good. What tangible steps is the industry taking to make that phrase really true?
We have a catchphrase that we use with the ACLI board to characterize what we're trying to achieve when we launch a new objective or a new initiative with big, bold objectives, and that's 1 + 1 = 5. So we try to figure out how, through our own efforts, through public-private partnerships, we can be a force multiplier and be a force for good, as you said. I think examples of this, again, I'll start with ACLI and the US. The membership has made a commitment to economic empowerment and racial equity. There's 4 pillars. It's focused on diversifying our workforce. It's focused on increasing access to our products to underserved communities. It's focused on financial inclusion and education. And it's focused on increasing investments in underserved communities. And on that last point, I would say that's a huge power we have with the investments that we make. The US life insurance industry invests $525 million a day in the US economy. And it is in agriculture, and it is in housing, and it is in education, things that really make our economy and country go. I think that's a not always well understood power that we have, and it's something that we're very purposefully thinking about how we can do more to help underserved communities. So an example of how we think about 1 + 1 = 5. We also have the IAIS has its Access to Insurance Initiative, A2I. There's the Microinsurance Network. Morocco has been a leader in that. Some examples of how this is playing out around the globe.
What's the unique role of trade associations in being a kind of force multiplier?
Well, I think of trade associations, it's that it's the bringing the sector together. So we have individual companies on the topic I just spoke to, impact investing, that are really stepping up and leading the way. You know, New York Life is investing $1 billion, is committed to invest $1 billion in impact investing. Mass Mutual is investing $50 million to Black-owned investor firms in their markets in Massachusetts. I could go on and on through our members. So it's what individual companies are doing a lot, and they're very engaged in their communities. But then what can we do together as an association to aggregate their investments, to find more opportunities, to have even more impact? That's how we think about what associations do. Globally, we have the Global Federation of International Associations, Insurance Associations, the Global Federation of Insurance Associations, GIFIA. My colleague Bashir Badu and I have the pleasure of serving on the executive committee. And that's another way that associations come together globally to address the issues we're talking about: climate change, sustainability, diversity, equity, inclusion, cybersecurity. What knowledge can we bring from around the world to take to our supervisors and others, again, to be a force for good?
I got two more questions, Susan, if you please. Let's talk about health. And we've seen through this period that health was at the center of the issues of people around the world, in the United States and around the world as well. So, and health is at the center of social sustainability, and it concerns all stakeholders, state, private sector, individuals. So how is insurance working today to strengthen its presence in this segment, and through what kind of financial tools?
Well, I think, as you say, the pandemic really focused attention on the fact that many working adults faced a difficult choice, between caring for a sick family member or doing their job. And in particular, women left the workforce in large numbers because they chose taking care of a sick family member, and I could 100% appreciate why. But then there's financial implications for the family that, as we talked about, can continue on into retirement years. It's hard to gain ground that you've lost. We think the life insurance industry can play a great role working in tandem with government to advance support for people, financial support, income replacement when they need to take care of their families. We cover almost 50% of the private sector workforce already in the States, and again, think we could do more in tandem with Congress or state governments to advance policies that can achieve that. So just one example of how we can step up to fit the need.
And my last question will be about the kind of organization that we can set up to make it well as public-private partnership model. What are the benefits that you can see of public-private partnerships when it comes particularly to sustainability and financial security for all?
I could not agree more with the statement that's inherent in your question, that public-private partnerships are the ultimate force for good. It's how you can achieve scale. I think it's policies that allow the private sector to do more, policies that nudge people to help take advantage of retirement savings vehicles, policies that, as we said, can help replace income while people take time off to take care of a family member and then help them get back to the workforce more quickly. Just some examples of public-private partnerships that can produce great results and achieve the scale we need to meet the human problem.
Susan, thank you for all your answers. Thank you for being with us today at this grand rendez-vous. Vous pouvez applaudir Susan NEELY qui était avec nous aujourd'hui.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci à vous. Merci, à très bientôt.